Well, I'm LifeBlood. This is George G, and the time is right. Welcome to today's guest, strong and powerful Joe Curry. Joe, are you ready to do this?
Absolutely, George.
All right, let's go. Joe is a CFP, CHS. He is the president and financial planner with Matthews and Associates. He is the host of the Your Retirement Plan Simplified podcast. Joe, excited to have you on. Tell us a little about your personal life, some more about your work, why you do what you do.
Sure. So on the personal side, I'm married, had two young boys. Lewis and Harry are 4 and 6, so they keep me pretty busy, pretty occupied when I'm not working. On the work side, I am a financial planner. Specifically, I focus on working with people approaching or into retirement, which is something that, George, as we were talking a little bit before the show, is I kind of evolved and transitioned into that space over time. So it's something I really enjoy doing. I had a previous mentor who I was a succession plan for their business. He had a lot of clients in that space. So it's been a lot of fun working in that area. But the reason I got started, I always tell people, I actually got started probably around 2000. So, 23 years ago when I was still actually in high school. But my dad's also in this business. And I can remember him coming home during the dot-com crash. And he was just, kind of had a proud look on his face. I asked him what was up, and he just let me know that he'd received a client from one of his widowed clients who called him just to say, Lawrence, my dad, Lauren, I just wanted to call and let you know that, I know there's a lot going on in the markets right now, but you're the reason I can sleep at night. And so that was really inspiring to me. And at that point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And, most people don't grow up wanting to be a financial planner. At that point, I was probably still thinking hockey. But that really kind of got me started looking into this business a little bit more. And obviously 23 years later, here I am.
I love it. So Lewis and Harry, do they have skates on right now?
Yeah, they're both playing hockey. So they both started when they were 3.
That's so funny. I told you I grew up in northern Minnesota, and I think I was probably around that age too, pushing a chair around the ice rink, and it was just a literal parking lot that they flooded, and that was the ice rink. So
And you can do that in northern Minnesota too. Probably better than where I am here in Canada.
maybe I love it. All right, so folks that are right around that retirement age. So you hit 50 and you start really seriously thinking about it. What are some of those considerations? It's certainly a lot.
Yeah. So I mean, when it comes to financial planning, everybody thinks about the financial side of it. But what we try to do is help people make sure before they get to retirement, they're thinking about what they're going to retire to, not just retiring from something. And so that starts with a couple things. One is really getting clear on your values, your core values. So a lot of people, they have their core values and they probably think they're living in alignment with it. But when we look at spending, a lot of times people are not spending in alignment with their values, and they're not even living in alignment with your values. So that's something where we have I guess you could call it a worksheet. So we have a navigator document, but one section really is about helping people identify those core values. And so part of it is just thinking through, what comes to mind when I think of core values. And then we also provide people with a list that they kind of go to after, and then we get them to kind of narrow it down to maybe 3 to 7. And so this is kind of an important first step. And this could be done for anyone, not just someone approaching retirement, but it's a good time to do it when people haven't, because it starts to help you think about what your identity and your purpose is beyond your work, right? And so that's kind of that next step, is figuring out what is going to get you out of bed in the morning when you no longer have to get up to go to work. So when we talk about purpose, a lot of times I think the word purpose really scares people, and they think they have to have, some almost godlike mission for life that they have to carry and live to their last, dying days. But really, when I'm talking about purpose, it's literally what's going to get you out of bed, what's going to get you excited to get up in the morning when you're no longer working. And it doesn't have to be one thing, and it could be some things that are changing. So right now for me, my kind of 3 priorities, well, maybe we'll use that word, priorities instead of purpose. My 3 priorities are my family, my health, and my business. So that's, where I focus my attention. And when I'm trying to think about how I'm planning my days, my weeks, my years, is I'm thinking about how am I prioritizing those areas. And those are the things that I'm excited about. So it's no different for someone in my situation and someone who's getting closer to retirement, because a lot of people have never really thought about that. And all of a sudden, we all have heard stories of people kind of retiring, you have a bit of the honeymoon phase, but then all of a sudden, they go into a deeper depression, have health issues, and sometimes unfortunately don't live long into retirement. So that really comes back to having retired from something and not figured out what's next and figuring out that purpose. So really thinking about those things are just as important as figuring out where you are from a financial standpoint, right? Financially, obviously, the earlier you start planning and building towards retirement, the better. But when people are really getting serious about it a few years out, I mean, you don't want to wait until, okay, I'm retiring tomorrow. Now I need to figure out if I can retire, right? So I always tell people at the very least, start a few years out about getting really serious about figuring out where you are from your finances, figuring out what your cash flow is going to look like in retirement. And so I don't know, George, about you, but I have a lot of people who might say, I think, I can live off of this in retirement, but that's not the reality once they actually get to retirement and start spending money. So what I like to try to do is tell people, let's figure out what you think the cash flow needs are going to be. And then at least a year ahead, we'll move basically all your income to a separate account, and we'll just drip into a different checking account where you do all your spending, the amount you think you're going to be able to live off in retirement. And we try that for a year or more just to see if it's working. So before you've committed to retiring and leaving your career where you have the income coming in, we have a good idea if you're able to meet your cash flow needs. So those are a few things kind of leading up to retirement that you want to be thinking about. Obviously, we could go all day about all the different financial planning pieces, but those are kind of some of the things I feel like people haven't really given a lot of thought to, that can help as you're approaching retirement.
Yeah, those are super powerful. I think that that's really cool. I love the idea of what are you retiring to versus what are you retiring from. So many things are just a simple little shift, but that simple shift is so profound in the way we think and what our perspective is. And if we're not thinking about what it is I'm going to be doing, what is my purpose, what is going to matter to me to make sure that I'm maintaining my health and my relationships and all those things, well, then I'm just going to miss out on stuff.
Yeah.
It's not going to be optimized.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, some people that, they just don't miss a stride and jump right into it. But, a lot of people have really dedicated themselves to their careers. And, for a lot of them, it's been a bit of a grind too, and they haven't really had time to get their head up and think about what's next. Right. And so all of a sudden, when those days aren't filled by kind of those obligations, it's a totally different situation that not everyone adapts naturally to. So giving it some thought ahead of time is definitely helpful.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, I see myself, when I'm 44 years old. And whenever I decide to step away from my work, if I do, it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? A lot of ways, I feel like I'm a beaver. If you threw me in Manhattan on Wall Street, I'd start building dams, right? And so all of a sudden, if I'm not a beaver anymore, what in the world am I going to do?
Yeah, for sure. And for some people, there doesn't have to be retirement either, right? Like a lot of people love what they do, and if you're productive and it gives you purpose and you still have balance to do other things in life that are important to you, like you don't have to retire, right? That's a word that it's almost something that some people feel obligated they need to retire when they hit a certain age, but it's not always the best thing, right? So, and I know I'm probably something like you, like I don't see a point where I'm just going to stop and not being doing any kind of work, right? So maybe I'll just do a little bit less work or narrow the focus of what I'm actually working on. But to me, retirement isn't a big goal. Maybe financial freedom, knowing I don't have to go to work, but less so actually stopping.
Yeah. And I also love the practice of, I just wrote down trial run for a year to figure out what it is, how much you think that you're going to be spending and try to simulate that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's through experience of working in the space for quite a while. I've seen some scenarios where the plans kind of blown up because spending was nowhere close to what we had planned in, right? So that's me maybe taking clients' word a little bit too much with it, digging a little deeper into it, right? So now we have a little more refined process and helping people figure out what that cash flow will probably look like, and then doing the trial run. Ideally, I mean, we do this more than a year out, so there's still some time to, I guess you could say, build in a more of a buffer or pivot, whatever the case may be. but at least a year out, so that at least you know where you're at once you hit that date.
Yeah. It's that famous everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face Mike Tyson quote. It's like, is your plan
Exactly.
going to survive its collision with reality? And yeah, a year is great. A couple of years is way better because it's just not going to go the way you expect it to.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. That's not really funny, it's bad. So you want to be able to pivot and make whatever changes are necessary. In terms of it, are people they're already engaged with you and doing planning? Is there are they amenable to these things? When you start talking about values, you start talking about these trial runs. Does it make sense to them?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've been doing this for a while now. So the more recent a client has come on, or our potential clients we're working with, are definitely very amenable to all this and implement. So where I have a little bit more trouble getting some buy-in is where we didn't do this in the first place. If we go back a number of years and we weren't already doing it, and we try to go back and add some additional value, put in some additional strategies, and start getting more into the values, that kind of stuff. Or I get a little bit more kind of pushback from those older relationships who I have a pretty tight relationship with, from because we've been working together. But change is always hard for people, right? And a lot of times they feel like, what, Joe, you've got me on a good track. I don't see why we need to make some changes. So, and that's not everybody, but that's where I would get more pushback. Anyone who's coming to work with me today or has come in the last couple of years, I mean, this is part of the process as we onboard, as part of the conversation and our initial meetings. So we just kind of run with it, and no one really knows any different. And the feedback has been great.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. And being able to have those conversations is, I think, probably intellectually, most of us do have a good understanding of the importance of having core values and to be revisiting these. But it's one of those things where I know I'm supposed to be doing it, but I don't necessarily do it, or it's been a long time since I've really thought about it. How often do you, how often, you always hate to say should, what is a healthy time period to be revisiting all these things?
Yeah, so I mean, I think at least annually, probably like more often, some kind of a process to keep that in front of you. So, for example, when I have my core values in my office in frame, so I just have it in a frame. I print it off, put it in there. It's not overly fancy, but it's in front of me. So whenever I go to my office and look at my bookshelf, I see my core values there. So it's a bit of a reminder. And then, so like you, George, I also get up really early in the morning. So I usually take some time to myself to kind of review my goals, plan out my week, and part of that process is I have those core values in there, along with some other affirmations and things like that. So that's kind of my process. I feel like most people are probably not going to review things that much, just on average, especially when they never have in the past. So some kind of an annual, planning or state of the union for the family type of a process would be definitely helpful at the very least, right? For clients, it's something that we keep on. We have a bit of like a cheat sheet, I guess you could call it, for prepping for reviews, kind of keeping all that important information in one place for the clients. And we keep those on there as well. So we kind of keep it top of mind for our conversations with our clients. And when we're talking about spending, trying to kind of weave in the values to how they're planning out their years and their goals, that kind of stuff.
I appreciate that. In terms of identity, and kicked around this in a couple of different ways, um, it is tricky to try to figure out what's next for me. Found with goal setting, I want to have some great future that is pulling me towards it, versus me trying to push through kind of uncomfortable things and push through any changes that I feel like I must make to actually get to where I want to go. But not everybody is like that. And so I imagine that you reserve judgment. You're not making judgments on what it is that your clients are telling you that they want to be doing. If they say, you know what, I just want to sit on my butt and watch TV or watch hockey every day, and that's it. But I'm sure you get all kinds of answers.
Yeah, so that's like, you're right. I mean, I don't give too much pushback, but I try to make sure we're asking the questions, having the conversations, giving examples of why it's important to be thinking about this kind of stuff, and kind of guide guide the conversation to see what they have thought of, what and kind of go from there. So everyone those conversations is a little bit different. And yeah, I'm not going to try to push my values or anything else on anybody else, but it's kind of like charitable plan giving. And it's kind of the same idea. That's a conversation I have with any new clients coming in and any current clients. And it's if that's not something that someone's interested in doing or planning, that's fine. But we're making sure we're having those questions or those conversations and asking the questions so that people are aware of how that could fit into the planning. So it's the same idea. And then the process we put into our navigator is it kind of helps people with something they can take away. So again, it's kind of like a worksheet, and it really just kind of helps people get a framework for how they might put together those. Like I said, if we do even do a top 3 priorities as opposed to thinking of it as purpose. And part of it is just going back to when we were all kids, we all had ideas of what we wanted to do when we were older, and we had money and all that kind of stuff. And most of us never end up doing a lot of those things that we thought of, right? So that's a good place to kind of go back to. Now you're going to have free time, you have financial independence. So are there things that you've always wanted to do you've never done? And for a lot of people, I just say, what about just trying to think of one of your priorities as just figuring out what you want your priorities to be, right? So just experimenting, trying new things and seeing if something sticks, right? Maybe some volunteering, some new activities, maybe a side hustle, whatever it is, but just kind of trying different things. And that can almost be that priority or that purpose or one of those to get you motivated. That might lead into some other things in the future.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. It's like asking people what's most important to you. You're like, whoa, that's tough. But if you said, you know what, from your physical health standpoint, what is most important? Oh, I'd like to be able to play with my grandkids. I'd like to be able to go hiking. So I think we all have kind of passing ideas, but just helping people to drill down and realize what's kind of possible probably helps people organize their thinking.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just any kind of conversation, when you start guiding and narrowing this discussion a little bit, then it starts giving people more specific ideas, and they can actually relate to it and come up with some of their own ideas.
I mean, with my kids, the last thing I want is for them just to be disinterested. And I suppose with my parents, and maybe with your parents, and certainly with clients, it's I want to make sure that you're having a rich life and you're doing all the things that you want. I just don't want you to be sitting around, sort of, for lack of a better term, wasting away. So helping people to have these kinds of conversations, I think, is so valuable.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it just depends on everyone's background and kind of their life journey. But for some people, this kind of stuff comes natural, and for others, it's just something that's never been on the radar. They haven't really thought about because they've always had those kind of priorities almost determined for them that they've been chasing. And so this next stage of transitioning into we'll call it financial and time freedom is a whole other world that they really haven't considered how they're going to figure that out.
Yeah, fascinating, right? And everybody's different. So
For sure.
I think you have job security for a while, Joe.
Yeah. All the demographics are looking good for retirement planning.
For sure. I love it. Well, Joe, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about you? How can people engage with you?
Sure. So we have a new website which is basically all retirement planning type education. It's retirementplanningsimplified.ca. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Joseph Curry, BSc CFP. And those are probably the two best places. Oh, I guess maybe the last one would be my podcast, Your Retirement Planning Simplified.
Beautiful. Well, if you enjoyed as much as I did, show Joe your appreciation and share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Go to retirementplanningsimplified.ca and check out all the great resources that Joe's put together. If what we've talked about has resonated, get in touch, take advantage of that retirement navigator process that we've been talking about. Find Joe on LinkedIn, which I'll link in the notes as well. And then check out the Your Retirement Plan Simplified podcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again, Joe.
Thanks, George. It's been fun.
Until next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.